at some point or another, you're probably going to want a tractor on your homestead. So depending on what kind, what size, and all that, depends on the kind of work you're going to be doing with it, and ultimately how much money you have. So tractors can be very expensive the bigger you go, and depending on what kind of brand and everything like that. And then starting out, you're probably going to want to go with used. Both tractors I have are used. This one's pretty old. I think it's older than me. But at the same time, when you do get something used, you're going to want to know at least the basics of mechanics, because you're probably going to end up doing a lot of fixing and stuff like that. I don't really know much about working on a tractor, but my dad and his friend do. So they've definitely been a big help, because there was a lot of stuff wrong with this tractor that unfortunately the Mennonite that I bought it off of didn't tell me. We ended up doing quite a bit of repairs on the radiator, the alternator. There were some oil leaks and stuff like that, different hoses we needed to replace. So dropped a decent amount of money into it, but still cheaper than buying something brand new. And then when you're dealing with a tractor this big, sometimes depending on what you're doing, it's nice to have another person there helping you. So you could probably do it by yourself, but it's just nice anytime you got to do any sort of heavy lifting just to have someone there. Biggest thing is just keeping up on your maintenance. I mean, just like a car or your truck, if you keep the oil changed and things like that, I mean, you know, eventually everything breaks or wears out, but you can at least slow it down. And for a tractor, especially a front end loader, you know, you change the oil, especially make sure, you know, you grease the fittings and things like that. And these things will actually last a long time without stuff breaking. Normally your hoses and things like that, it's what you end up getting cracks and tears and things like that in. As long as the stuff's easy to get to, generally it's not too bad. It's the stuff that whenever we had to do some repairs, just taking things off, we had to take the front end loader off, take the front end, lift the hood. Fortunately, we had a garage to go into because it was in January, and it just wouldn't have been very fun in the cold there trying to do it. You can make a lot of modifications too. So one of the reasons for getting this was because sawing all the logs on a sawmill needed something to help lift the logs. So my dad and his friend, they ended up building a set of forks here. So being on Homestead, if you can weld, that is a skill that a lot of people overlook. But man, there's a lot you can do with welding, especially if you got a tractor and different farm equipment. You know how to weld, you can fix things yourself. That's going to save you a lot of money. So for this, you can see the middle bar there is bent. I ended up doing that accidentally because the hydraulics, they lower by themselves from some sort of leak or whatever, and you just got to keep up on it. And the one fork ended up catching the ground and bent, but you can still make it work. But you can see we got the forks here. Just cut some steel. You get a thing to cut some steel with, and then, you know, there's a lot you can make. Drill through metal. Just kind of come up with designs off the internet or do your own thing. They welded a little chain hook thing there, so you can either wrap the chain around the tree and lift it up, or just put it on forks. A lot of times, if you can just slide the forks under, just lift it up, and these will slide in and out. If you do end up getting a tractor with a front end loader, you're going to want to make sure you have a little counterweight in the back. You can either buy big chunks of metal, or you can make stuff like what we did here. Sometimes we even, for the Kubota, a lot of times we just put the hay fork on the back there, a little hay spike, and then just put a round bale in there, and a lot of times that's a good counterbalance there. So here we just cut a 55-gallon barrel drum in half, And then they ran some metal through, welded on. I'm not that talented to do this, so my dad and his friend do all this. I'm not very bright when it comes to stuff like that. But you can see, one thing is you got to make sure you lift this up when you go to leave. So sometimes I forget to do that and it bends. So, but the stuff's pretty strong. So fortunately it just bent and didn't break. I'm not sure how much it weighs, but I know different times we tried to move it, just kind of pushing it, and I couldn't even budge it. So it weighs a good bit. Two main reasons you want that counterbalance is you take a look at the front end loader here. There's a lot of steel, a lot of weight there, just empty. And then depending on what you're lifting, big heavy log, round bales, you know, what have you. Now you've got the weight of the front end loader plus all that weight there. So what that'll do is you're going to put a lot of strain on your front axles. And I've heard different times where people have busted their front axles from just all that weight, because now it's lifting up from the back, just putting all that strain there. And the people that I bought it from had one of the tires here around the rim, it was cracked because they didn't have a counterbalance, and it ended up just cracking some of that. Probably the biggest thing with the counterweight too is just the safety of it, because you get a lot of weight on there and you don't have anything in the back, you're going to flip the back end up, depending on if you're on any sort of side of a hill or whatever. You might flip that thing, roll it over, and you know, results could be pretty grim. So I've had the back end come up once on the Komodo. I was lifting the log, didn't have a counterweight. I was just testing it out, and yeah, I came right up into the air. Fortunately, just lowered the bucket real quick, nothing happened, but that was a good lesson learned for me. And then also too, if you got all the weight up front, you're going to lift the back tires partially, and then you're not going to have the tread. So your main force, even in four-wheel drive, is coming from the back tires. And if you don't have a counterweight back there to give some weight to the tires, you know, even if you got fluid in them, you're probably going to start spinning your tires. And so having that counterweight there, that'll help keep you from getting stuck and spinning. And then there's other smaller modifications you can do. We got an old ammo can, bolted it, and these are nice to keep your tools in and stuff. Different things. It's waterproof. And then there wasn't any back window, so my dad and his friend, they put a little grate over it, because if you're hauling manure, spreading manure there, and you end up having some rocks in there, it'll kick back. And I don't know whether it had busted the window or they just took it out or what, but this will keep you from getting smacked in the head with a rock spreading manure. And then we rigged up some of our own lights, because the ones up there, the one's busted and missing. And I don't even think that one works. And if you're going on the road, a lot of times the laws require it, but even if they don't, it's nice to have your slow moving vehicle placard there, just to keep somebody from coming up and hitting you. So there can be a lot of work in a tractor, but at the same time, if you get it running good, it can do a lot of work for you. You can get a lot of heavy stuff that normally you wouldn't be able to pick up yourself. Just, I know this tractor, I've only had it a couple years, and it's just saved me a pile of work. Used it for everything from hauling logs, putting them on the sawmill, to baling hay, to you name it. People have gotten stuck, hooked a chain up, pulled them out. So it's been a good tractor.